everyone, and welcome to today's live technology summit, Building the Ultimate Customer Portal, brought to you by Technology and Services Industry Association and sponsored by Kantata and Thought Industries. My name is Vanessa Lucero, and I'll be your facilitator for today. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. Today's summit will be recorded. A link to the recording of today's presentation will be sent to you within 24 hours via email. Audio will be delivered via streaming. All attendees will be in a listen-only mode, and your summit controls are found in the toolbar at the top right corner of your screen. We encourage your comments and questions. If you think of a question for the presenters at any point, please submit through the Ask a Question box in the top left corner, and we will be opening it up for a verbal Q&A portion at the end of today's session. Lastly, feel free to enlarge the slides to full screen at any time by selecting one of the full screen button options, which are located on the top right corner of the slide player. I would now like to introduce our moderator for today, John Ragsdale, Distinguished Researcher and Vice President of Technology Ecosystems for TSIA. As with all of our TSIA events, we do have a lot of exciting content to cover, so let's jump right in and get started. John, over to you.
Well, thank you, Vanessa. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Technology Summit, Building the Ultimate Customer Portal. These technology summits are light on slideware and heavy on conversation. We have three amazing experts on the various areas of portals who are going to be answering lots and lots of questions for me today. Definitely be taking questions from the audience. So I know that 90 minutes is a long time, but I promise it is a lot of value, and I really appreciate you tuning in to join us today. So the reality is we live in a self-service world, and it is always amazing to me what new self-service capabilities are being offered to us, sometimes forced on us. Some of the new airport designs are almost eliminating manual check-in. Everything is done by self-service. Personally, I am really bad at lining up the adhesive strips on those the labels on my luggage, but I'm sure in time I will figure that out. But when we think about self-service, we sometimes think that we're forcing customers on this self-service, but the reality is customers tend to prefer self-service. So this is about giving them the opportunity to self-serve when they want to and making the experience as positive as possible. One proof point, this is data from the channel preference study that we do, which asks companies when they need help with a support issue, which of the channels do they prefer or occasionally use? And you can see from this data that self-service is right up there at the top with email, even higher than chat or phone. So customers like self-service, but we don't always do a great job of delivering self-service in a low effort, really good experience approach. So today, we are going to be talking about the post-sales self-service experience. In previous technology summits, we have focused on designing the ultimate customer journey. We've looked at automating the quote to cash process. So we looked at portals from a sales and renewals perspective. But today we're going to focus on the role of portals from implementation to onboarding and through to technical support. So let's talk about some of the challenges that current siloed approach to portals is causing. And, you know, we're talking a lot about silos right now at TSIA. Our upcoming event in Las Vegas is all about departmental silos and breaking down those barriers to accelerate transformation. But self-service really runs into a lot of challenges with silos as well. We see that different departments are creating their own self-service sites using different technology, different user interfaces. It's very confusing for customers to even keep track of where to go to find the specific portal they need for this. And with all of the different UIs, it's very confusing for them to quickly adopt and get value from the self-service capabilities. There's often no one with oversight of the entire self-service journey. So no one is really trying to rein in all of these different experiences. And as a result, many companies aren't getting the adoption of self-service that they would expect. So again, it is something that customers want to use, but we've got to remove those barriers, like having 10 different sign-ons in order for that to really be highly adopted by our customers. So I want to introduce today's expert panelists. We have three folks with expertise from the customer learning side, implementation side, the customer success side, the support side. So I'm going to ask each one to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your company. So Jill Swatsky, Chief Customer Officer for Thought Industries. This is the third technology summit you have participated in. So you are, I guess, a glutton for punishment. But thank you very much for coming back. And please tell us a bit about yourself and Thought Industries.
Practice makes perfect, John. So as John said, my name is Jill Sawatsky, and I'm based in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've been working in the field of customer success for many years. I won't even say how many years at this point, or I'll age myself, but I originally started the first customer success organization in IBM many years ago. And I've really grown my career along with the customer success industry. As it's grown, I've grown. So I'm the Chief Customer Officer at TI, which means I'm responsible for leading all of the teams that are involved in the entire post-sale customer journey and experience. And just a little about Thought Industries. We are the leading enterprise learning platform for customers, for partners, as well as for professional training. Originally founded in 2013, we're really the only learning platform that has completely native tools and integrations that really drive customer engagement. So I think some of my experience with TI will be an interesting take today on customer portals. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And next on our panel, Matt Schlessman is Vice President of Global Customer Success for Kantata. Matt, welcome to the Tech Summit.
Well, thanks, John. Very nice to meet everyone. So as John mentioned, I'm Matt Schlessman. I'm based just outside of Boston and lead the customer success organization at Kantata. Kantata was formed over about a year and a half ago by bringing together two leaders in the PSA space, Maven, Link, and Kimball. But I've been with the broader organization and coming through one of those teams. I've been with the company for about 5 years. In my role, I'm responsible for our global customer base, but in my career, I've been working in and with and leading services organizations over the past 25 years. For those who may not be familiar with Kantata, I'll just give a quick snippet on who Kantata is. So we are the industry cloud for professional services organizations. So our software platforms, our integration, our services expertise all comes together to give professional services organizations the power to help their employees work smarter, to scale more effectively, and to deliver superior client engagements. And I think one of the aspects that I'm very excited about that I think is very important at Kantata is a singular focus. We solely focus on professional services organizations. And the reason I think that's important is the impact that has. We help our customers unleash their potential to deliver incredible work, to help build and advance powerful talent networks, and to consistently help our customers achieve their growth and financial goals. So that's a little bit of context on Kantata, but I'll just say I'm very excited for the discussion today. So thank you, John, for the opportunity to join you and Jill and Tavi in the webinar today.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Matt. And you're wearing a couple of hats today because you're our expert on implementation portals, but also as a customer success VP, we're going to be pulling you into that onboarding discussion as well. So thanks for being here. So a little trivia, we started doing these summits about a decade ago, and the very first summit we ever did was on customer portals. And one of our panelists for that summit was Patabi Rahman. He is the VP Digital Experience for Informatica. He is my go-to person for anything to do with self-service, communities, knowledge management. So if you think I'm smart, it's just because I'm stealing from Patabi all the time. So Patabi, welcome to the Tech Summit.
Thank you, John. No pressure at all. So good morning, everyone. John, thank you so much for having me again. And it's always a pleasure to be on your panel with other distinguished speakers. And, always happy to come and share insights with our audience. So like John mentioned, my name is Patabi Rahman, Vice President, Digital Experience at Informatica. Just a quick background about Informatica. We are an enterprise cloud data management company. In other words, we are like the Switzerland for data management, right? We help companies in their digital transformation with data as their foundational asset, right? Helping them to make key decisions, improve customer experience, and of course, driving business outcomes. In my role at Informatica, I'm responsible for delivering digital experience at scale to our customers, partners, as well as our employees across the post-sales function. So this includes support, customer success, professional services, renewals, and education services. This also includes strategy and execution of customer experience programs, content and knowledge management, which includes content and knowledge management as well. And I'm also responsible for some of the core enterprise applications like our CRM systems, support portals, communities, and micro-learning platforms. And I'm very delighted to be here today. Thank you.
Well, thanks for being here. I think you're going to add a lot to this conversation. So I wanted to open with a polling question before we start diving into the conversation. And let me get my preview open here. So what I would like to know from the audience is really where you are on this concept of really a single consolidated customer portal. So thinking about websites or portals available for customers from implementation to onboarding and support, how many separate online experiences do you currently have? And your options are, we have a single customer portal with a single UI experience for everything. And I'm going to be surprised if that's a huge number. B, we are slowly consolidating. We have a single portal, but within that single portal, we've got multiple user interfaces and experiences. The third option is kind of the opposite. We have multiple website and portals, but the UI and experience are similar. So kind of deciding, where you are starting on this journey. And D, we have multiple website portals with completely different UIs and experience. And I talk to a lot of companies in that situation. So go ahead and select the answer that best represents where you are in this journey. And I think that's just helpful in getting a feel for how we should focus some of our comments as we move forward. I recently talked to one of our TSIA members who have 20 plus product lines, and they have a separate self-service site for each product line. And each of them developed it alone, meaning it's different tools, different UI, and something like 75% of their customers have more than one product. So they're having to navigate this, and it really gives a disjointed, disconnected experience to the customers. And ultimately, it's not really great for your brand, and it's certainly not allowing you to maximize your investment in self-service. Well, the majority of the audience has weighed in, so I'm going to press the magic button and let's see what the results are. So 10% have made a lot of progress on this journey. Congratulations to you. And 16%, 15% are still struggling with either a single user interface, or a single portal, but still a lot going on. And as I suspected, the majority of the audience, 60%, we still have multiple websites with completely different UIs and experience. So for that 60%, you've definitely tuned in to the right Technology Summit, and I appreciate everybody weighing in on where you are in your journey. And now I think it's time to get started with our discussion. So I want to start the discussion with the close of a new customer deal. So Matt, Kantata is one of the leading professional services automation providers, or PSA. So I'd like to start with you. According to our professional services benchmark, 98% of PS projects for B2B software companies are now being delivered remotely. So if you aren't on site with your customers, I'm assuming that these project portals are a critical element, so customers can stay updated on the progress, the milestones, et cetera, because you're not sitting in a boardroom having a kickoff meeting every morning to stay in sync. So could you talk about the role of customer portals in implementation projects?
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. And I think given that Kantata's customers are all services organizations, I can actually speak to this, I think, from a couple of perspectives. One is, I can first speak to it in terms of how our internal Kantata professional services team leverages a customer portal on implementation of our solutions, but also from the perspective of what we see our customers leverage in terms of their customers' portals, or their customer portals. So I'll start with the Kantata implementation teams and how we leverage them. As we are signing a new customer, or even just a new piece of work, every project, or related even down to the level of every SOW, has its own project portal. Both the Kantata implementation team as well as the customer implementation team have access to this project portal, and we leverage this portal for some key elements. The first area is in collaboration. A lot of communication that we're driving through the portal, status updates, questions. We're sharing documents through the portal. This can be leveraging it as a general document repository, but also even tying specific documents to milestones or tasks as part of the engagement. On the topic of tasks, obviously there's a project plan, a work breakdown structure, and what we call our task tracker. That provides the ability to manage critical milestones and any tasks leading up to the attainment of that milestone. And on those individual tasks or milestones, we're managing statuses and specific assignees, team members from either Kantata's implementation team or customer project team members that are responsible for those particular items. And when it comes to the customer's access, they have pretty broad access across a variety of different project data associated with the engagement, with the exception of financials. So obviously there's some sensitive data around things like cost and margin that we wouldn't be sharing with customers. But aside from that, the access is pretty broad, and customers collaborate and update statuses, response to questions, posting questions, documents, and the work breakdown structure. They have the ability not just to update and manage tasks, but to create and manage their own tasks and issues and risks. And I think what we've seen is that there's some great benefits that we realize from this. It really, ultimately, it's making it easily accessible to any of the project team members to understand the state of the project at any given point. Mm-hmm. It's the ease of communication and collaboration, like having everything all in one place. And you talked up front about self-service. The self-service access is so important in that not just having the access, but also the aspect of the real-time nature of it, the real-time access to status, the real-time collaboration. So I think I'll just share that that's sort of our internal perspective, but I think we see this pretty consistently echoed with a lot of our customers as well. So I think these project portals that can be accessed by both the delivery team and the end customer really play a critical role in project delivery.
I know about half the time, according to our benchmark, that a success manager is assigned to an account at the beginning of the implementation. Obviously, the implementation is kind of setting you up for success or failure with customer success. Do you see CSMs getting involved in that portal too?
That's a great question. We absolutely do, because I think it's important the CSM, while they're assigned to the customer from the point of signature going forward, during implementation, it's really, we want our implementation teams, our delivery managers, our project managers, our consultants kind of taking the lead and taking point with the customer. But it's very important for the CSM to stay abreast of, how's the engagement going? What's the health of the engagement? Are things on track in a timely fashion, and making sure that they're well aware of everything that's going on. And the beauty of this is that it allows our CSMs to engage, to be able to access that information at any point. And it's also saving a lot of time on the part of our project managers and our implementation team, not having to constantly feed out updates and share information. And it's not just CSMs, it's actually more broad across a number of stakeholders within the organization. Another great example is we look to a number of our implementations, we'll assign an executive sponsor, and it's an opportunity for the executive sponsor to stay abreast of what's the latest within that project at a glance, or just at a glimpse.
So how have you seen Kantata's customer portals evolve over the years? And are you hearing demand for more reports, analytics, dashboards? What are people asking for?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think they do continue to evolve over time. I think when it comes specifically to like reports, analytics, dashboards, one that I think is a real focal point in our coordination with customers that's customer facing is it's referred to as a project status report, and that sounds really simple, but it's much more robust than that. So calling it a report really doesn't do it justice. What this does is it blends together a variety of different delivery data with some internal project health reports that we're capturing snapshots of on a weekly basis. And it's a great mechanism to provide the customer with that weekly summary of where the project is in the project progress. It's so effective and so valuable that for our engagements where we have project steering committee meetings that are happening on a cadence of, say, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, that report or that dashboard is actually the basis of that meeting. It's in the first slide that we pull up. That's what we're looking at. And the beauty of this is it's automatically generated from the data that our project teams and our project managers are already tracking in the portal. So it rolls up a view that summarizes the data that is important for the customer. Again, it doesn't include the data we wouldn't necessarily want to share with the customer, like key internal financial data. But the power of this is our teams don't have to kind of go and separately create this content and maintain this content. It's automatically generated. And I find that this report is the most commonly shared insight that's kind of leveraged between our customers and internal teams on implementations. But beyond that, I think we've seen a number of other areas where people are looking to access analytics and reports and insights as through these portals. So good examples would be for T&M projects, weekly, monthly burn reports, things related to invoicing and payment status, project timeline reporting, how are we doing in terms of milestone delivery versus a baseline? And another really common example, it's I think as many people participating today know, it's pretty uncommon to just set a project off and not have changes along the way. So change orders are a common theme. So having access to be able to look at all the defined and agreed upon change orders, related documents, what specifically is impacting in the work breakdown structure related to those. So that's another common theme that we see. So hopefully that gives some good perspective on some of the themes around reports and analytics. Yeah,
and your comment on better tracking of change orders and visibility for that, I think ties into my next question. I was recently doing some research on days sales outstanding, or DSO, for PS projects, and one source said that the average DSO for PS projects is 45 days. So one of the reasons customers are slow to pay is they don't have enough detail about the projects. And I would think having a robust project portal providing detailed information on each project and all of the related costs, including those change orders, would probably reduce the DSO, because then the bill comes and they understand exactly what it is and why it is what it is. Could you comment on any business impact of project portals for customers, DSO or otherwise?
Yeah, well, DSO is a great example. I'll actually start with that, and then I'll share some other perspective as well. The DSO example, that's a very valid impact that the portals can have in terms of reducing DSO for services projects. it can start with information that's as simple as, I think a great example for T&M projects might be like sharing data around burn versus budget. But oftentimes we see, opportunities in those types of projects as well, where people are interested in looking at involving customers in timesheet approval or expense approval, right? Or sharing in the review process and the approval process draft invoices, including the details of really kind of what's sitting behind those draft invoices. The ability to share that type of information through a project portal, if you think about it, you can take away a lot of the activities that perhaps are leading to that increase or that higher rate of the higher amount of days in DSO. You can pull a lot of those activities forward so that by the time you actually send the invoice out, it's more just a formality. Like the customer already has all the information and feels like they're very informed and aligned. I think some of the other aspects in terms of business impact, I've already referenced this a little bit, but I think communication and visibility is really key. I think we all know it's very easy for things to get lost in email. I'm sure you're all like drowning in email. And we have so many messaging tools and platforms, Teams, Slack, information is all over the place. So being able to bring this project-related information into one consistent place, and then broadly making it available across all the stakeholders, internal stakeholders, customer stakeholders, is really key. And I think we've seen a real impact of this in the last 6 to 9 months, especially given the current economic situation. One of the things we've observed in the last 6 to 9 months is we've seen a lot of changes in organizations. We see turnover and changes of individuals and team members on the customer side of our projects. And if you think about it, like, capturing that project communication and collaboration in the portal is critical just for that consistency in the history. If team members are kind of being swapped in and out, and I think that consistency of communication is critical to help address that risk of the shifting stakeholders. Certainly there's benefits in time savings, saving PMs a lot of time, but it's also, there's a benefit of time savings to the customer. By the customer being able to give multiple people within their organization access, now there's less follow-up necessarily required for them internally. They can leverage the same benefits of the portal from a communication standpoint. And I think the other point that's really important here, John, you referenced this earlier, but as we think about like other kind of peripheral stakeholders, I'll hold up the customer success managers as an example. We're not directly involved in the day-to-day, but having that access and that visibility is, I think, really important and has a big impact, because then as we continue along in the customer journey, we can be informed, have that context and that background versus having to have, sort of what traditionally have kind of been transition or handoff points. So hopefully that gives a few good examples.
Yeah, great info. I appreciate you starting us off on our discussion today. And now I want to assume that the customer has successfully implemented their new technology and we're ready to onboard all of the employees. And customer training used to be in the realm of education services or professional services, but today more than half of companies say that customer success is responsible for onboarding. So Jill, Thought Industries is unique in that you provide technology that covers customer learning content development, learning management systems, and a learning experience platform. And I know this is a big topic, but could you talk a little bit about how customer learning has evolved from classroom to online and the importance of customer portals for one-stop shopping for learning content and onboarding?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, we're one of the shops that does professional services for our onboarding, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I think we all can agree that the world has really changed drastically in turning digital. And with this digital era, that it's really transforming customer learning, because everything else connected to it has transformed as well. So what I mean is, screens are bigger, but they're also smaller at the same time. Customer learning has really evolved from classroom to online, but we've also evolved to really meet customers with the learning experience that they desire. And so, for example, a classroom is now a virtual classroom. And the education that you need now comes in the form of a long format course, a micro course, a short article, a quick video, a how-to guide, etc. So, this is why a customer portal is so necessary, because there's so many options and customers want to be able to have those different options and choose what they need. So it needs to be really easily digestible, easy to find. And, of course, the user experience has to have evolved with this digital evolution. And you need that user experience to really keep the client engaged. So we actually had a recent white paper around this and talked about the modern learning experience. And so even when individuals say they love a brand, 32% would still walk away after a single bad experience. So it's vital that that portal be really easy to use. And then, but also, the same white paper talks about how online courses can be finished nearly 60% faster than in-person lessons, but instructor-led courses are up to 42.9% more effective than self-paced. So what I just said two things that were the exact opposite. Online courses can be finished much faster, but instructor-led courses are, more effective than self-paced. So you have to strike a balance between all the different options that you want to put in that customer portal and that are available online. So that's what I see as the real importance of having options and all in a one-stop shop of those options in a customer portal.
Yeah, well, definitely different people consume content differently. So having as many options available is key. So the other number on this slide that I want to talk about, 45% of companies have no visibility into the onboarding progress of customers. So if all of your learning content is in a single place and customers are going to this one portal to access onboarding, I'm assuming that's going to help this problem, because we know that there's a correlation between completing onboarding, speed of adoption, and rate of renewal. And if you've got no visibility, if your customers are actually consuming the learning content, you're kind of flying blind when it comes to adoption and renewals. So could you talk about the role of portals and the role of technology in general in improving this 45%?
Yeah, that number is incredibly low. It's amazing. So, as a CX leader, I can happily say that we really invest in our customer success team, our support team, our customer education team. And like I mentioned earlier, we have our own separate professional services team that does our onboarding along with the CSMs alongside. And we keep a very close pulse on every step that our customers take throughout that, because it is all through a single portal. So across the team and the different members involved, they're all aware of what is happening with the customer. And, we all understand that data is king. So we found many correlations in our own training and onboarding between users who have spent more time interacting with our customer education resources, and whether that's live webinars, articles, on-demand courses, all of them, they lead to much faster onboarding. And in the long term, those customers submit fewer support tickets. And those same users also interact with our CSMs in a much more engaging interaction, and it's much more strategic. And it also works the other way around, that the clients who do not do the training often spend a lot of time with CSMs asking really basic questions, which is a waste of their time and the CSM's time, and that they could have learned that if they had just done the initial training. So it's interesting that we can, readily see that information right in our data. It sounds basic, but it's right there in the stats to see. And, we get less tickets, and we don't have to have as many tactical calls with those customers who are trained. And then back on the adoption thread, obviously adoption of your product is extremely key, and every company has to be aware of it. But a really good onboarding brings a client to really a much quicker time to value, and of course a better ROI, which brings your value to your company, and the customer's happy and will stay with you longer. So we have our own academy based on our platform, of course, and my team reports, on using our native reporting hub, which is the same thing that we have our clients do on their training of their own customers, and having that data available on exactly where the customers are in training. So we use it ourselves, and then our clients also have access to that same information about their customers. So they have no excuse, not to know what's happening across their customer base as well. And we all try to, share that and keep in the loop of ourselves as well as our customers' customers.
So I want to talk about learning experience platforms, or LXP, which is kind of the hot new technology in education services. Maria Manning Chapman, who's the research VP for our education services practice, talks a lot about personalized learning paths. In an ideal world, each individual customer can have a unique onboarding path depending on their role, the way they like to consume content, their desired outcomes for the tools. My take is that these LXPs can automate the creation of those personalized learning paths. Jill, could you talk about the advantages of LXPs and how that personalization works?
Sure. So LXPs generally use AI and have been for a number of years. But AI has really exploded at the moment, but this form of AI has existed for quite a while to really be able to generate personalization in terms of education, and it can be in many formats. So for example, does the user need a recommendation for a series of content or a specific learning path, or maybe it's just a specific topic that they're interested in? And so there's a couple ways you can do this. One is to just have a simple assessment where you ask them about what they're interested in and then make specific recommendations based on that using AI. And that can be used to create personalized learning pathways. But it can also come in the form of a more data-driven result. So for example, understanding what training your peers are taking. So this is kind of like the Netflix algorithm of, if you like this, you probably will like this as well. Your people similar to you like these other shows. So you can do that same thing in terms of learning paths and really personalize it in that way. And it can be, this method of recommending content can be distributed throughout your application or your academy. So you can have that, just in time as the user needs it. And, you can also have dashboards set up to track how that's working and how responsive customers are to that. So tons of flexibilities in what you can do with this.
So the last time we surveyed all of our members about technology adoption was 2021, and at that point, only 18% of our members had adopted a learning experience platform. I'm happy to announce that we're just launching all of the technology stack surveys this month. So very soon I will have updated data, and I'm hoping we will find that we've gone way up from that 18%. So stay tuned for more info on that spot. And to our audience, if the topic of AI and customer learning is of interest to you, next week I am doing a webinar with Barry Kelly, who is the CEO of Thought Industries, specifically on that topic. So please register and attend that webinar. So speaking of onboarding, Patabi, we recently had a call about how Informatica had created this automated approach to ensuring customers are onboarded effectively and are getting value from their new technology. Would you be willing to share your approach to the post-onboarding customer experience and how you're able to help customers model that first 35 days after go live to maximize benefits?
Absolutely, John, happy to. So, I mean, like any other organization, right, we're always looking at opportunities to automate the repetitive, right? And optimizing either the CSM's time or support engineer's time, or anybody who's sort of doing all those repetitive chores. So to that effect, what we did was back in Q4 of 2022, we did a customer journey workshop. Obviously, we had the pleasure of hosting you as well to come and provide some inputs on that. The whole idea behind this, it was a very data intensive and data driven approach, right? So what we actually did here was understand what is an ideal customer journey looks like in the first 35 days of them being, purchasing your software or purchasing your product. Now, we went to support. Obviously, they have the most amount of data onto what are the typical obstacles or the typical issues that they run into, right? So we took all that information, and in the whole customer journey for the first 35 days, what is required for a customer to start using our product or your platform effectively, right? And then you take all those obstacles that you sort of identify from your support data, and start plotting the hotspots, right, in your customer journey. And then you sort of say, okay, here are the things that you expect a customer to achieve at the end of 35 days. Okay. And here are key milestones, interim milestones that they need to do, right? Now, based on those milestones in the journey mapping, you sort of identify what is the content that is required to help unblock the hurdles, right, for your customers. So you sort of align your content strategy along with it, and make sure that you put together a comprehensive automated learning path for your customers. So what this helps is you're not just onboarding your customer just from a product standpoint, but also from a process and services standpoint, right? Because you have customers who want to understand how your product works, but also you want your customers to understand how to engage with support. What are the resources that are available at their disposal. So when you put this whole entire journey mapping together, and you also identify what are the different personas that you're addressing this, is this onboarding for your admin persona, or is it for a developer persona, or is it for an architect? So we sort of took this whole holistic approach using data as the backbone to sort of really get insights into what are the typical challenges that they run into. And in the mid of Q1 of this year, we sort of kicked off a pilot for this whole process. So we used to get all the information. So using all the telemetry data that the product provides us, we would know what all activities is a customer performing. Now we have provisioned the product. Has the customer logged into the product? So that's the first signal, right? If they're not signaled, can we send an automated message to the customer saying that, hey, customer, here is your login details. We haven't seen your login. Can you please log in? And here are the next steps that you need to sort of do once you log in. So once the customer logs in, what are the prerequisites of the checklist that they need to perform, right? So every event that customer performs, there is an trigger which will send them a notification of what next that needs to be done. And I think we have onboarded almost close to 50 customers so far in a completely digital nurturing fashion, without any human intervention, without any CSMs involved, right? And the feedback has been great. When I say feedback, I think our customers have actually embraced this whole change in a very positive way, and we have seen some early success as well. And at the same time, this is not like a one-time activity. It has to be an ongoing ongoing improvement process, fine-tuning it, and making sure we are sort of ensuring that any obstacles that comes along the way, we sort of unblock them for our customers based on different use cases that they're using our product for.
So are the customers opting in to this program?
They are, like I said, we have seen some great results. Obviously, this is a pilot. We are still in a pilot phase. It's not something that we have exposed to all our customer base, right?
Okay.
But eventually, once we sort of ensure that this is working perfectly, there is no reason why we don't see it cannot be expanded to the rest of the customer base. Absolutely.
Well, the reality is getting budget for new technology is hard right now. Companies have to jump through a lot of hoops to get budget. And I would think that a program like this to help you prove to your executives that you're getting value from your investment would be as good for them as it is for you. You've said I know it's still a pilot program, but if delivering value equates to higher renewal rates, are you seeing any impact to renewals yet?
I would not call on the renewal set because it's just been we've started this only in Q1, but I can certainly say that the customers who have started on this journey are certainly using the product well. I think if you're if you're adopting to your product well, then obviously it would lead to good renewal rates. But I can certainly talk about some early success, right? So I talked about different milestones, right, that we have identified within the first 35 days. So in a typical CSM led journey, we noticed that reaching the first milestone took somewhere between 25 to 28 days, right? However, in this entire digital journey, we are seeing a customer reach the first milestone within 15 days. So what are we doing differently here is that we are proactively engaging with the customer, right? So you know what content needs to go to the customer once they reach a specific step in their journey, right? So you're sort of nurturing them, handholding them, and saying, okay, hey, you're done step one. Now here are the things that you need to do to achieve step two. Now you've done that. Now here are the next things. So we have sort of taken some best practices from what some of our most successful customers are doing, and using that as one of the key ingredients. We sort of tell our customers, saying, okay, here are some of our most successful customers too, and and this is what we have put together for you guys. And from a response standpoint, few things, right? 100% delivery rate on the emails, which means that the quality of contact that we have is good, right? No bounce backs, and we are almost close to 91% open rate on the emails that we send out as part of the digital nurturing, which means that the subject of the email resonates with the customers that we are engaging with and with the personas that we are engaging with. And we have almost close to 95% click rate on the links, on the call to actions, right? Which either takes the customers to the learning path that we have put together or taking them back to the product. So that's a very positive number for a pilot, absolutely. And of course, it also the effectiveness of the content that we use in the nurturing, right? So that's also an additional validation. So, I mean, we are using the content that has sort of proven to educate customers effectively, resulting in higher renewal rates. So all we are doing is sort of proactively delivering it rather than having the customer come and search for it, if that makes sense.
Well, I think any marketing people in the audience are very envious of those open and click-through rates. That's pretty impressive. So before we leave the topic of onboarding, Matt, you are a global VP of customer success. So I'm guessing you own onboarding for Kantata customers. Any highlights you can share about your learning portal or your approach to onboarding?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to offer perspective around how we leverage our learning portal, but also I think I'd also like to I'll talk a little bit about where we're headed in our vision, because I think it aligns to some of the discussion here very well. When it comes to our learning content, we're focused on building and delivering the highest quality content that we can, but more importantly, it's how it's delivered. So we're continuing to build on-demand e-learning content that really supports a just-in-time training approach. I think we can probably all agree that for the most part, gone are the days of kind of sitting and attending a 2-day training course, right? We're looking to provide opportunities, learning opportunities that fit the flow of our customers' work. So whether that's an hour-long course, a 5-minute video, what best applies to where that individual is in their learning journey and what they're already doing. And I won't go into a lot of detail on this, but I think one other important consideration tied to this is that we're working to also eliminate commercial barriers. I think that's an important consideration when we talk about like learning portals and e-learning content. You know, it's important to consider the commercial aspect because there's certainly value associated with training content. And I'm sure, you know, certainly at Kantata and many of the other organizations that are probably on this webinar today are looking to ways that they can monetize that. But one of the things that's been really important to us is how do we do that in a way that's really makes it seamless for customers to access and consume content. So one of the things that we've done is we've packaged up an offering that we call an all access pass that allows customers to leverage, you know, different portions of content at different points across their entire customer journey. So, you know, a couple of examples, you know, in implementation, there's a focus on driving rapid time to value for perhaps a very specific functional area. So for Kantata, that might be resource management. So we're delivering very targeted content through the e-learning platform there. You know, post-implementation, it might be focusing on another functional area, functional component. For Kantata, that might be project management, right? So it's looking to be very targeted. And then even in the ongoing journey that the customer has, maybe at some point we identify, as a CSM identifies, hey, we're seeing a thread of consistent support cases here relative to a particular topic, so that we can be very prescriptive in recommending targeted content associated with that. But the key with all this is it's not just simple, like, you know, point and click content. Like we have free offerings, point and click offerings about, you know, how to use the product, but the courses really go a step further than that. It's really looking at best practice application of the technology to the business processes and ties in things like, you know, hands-on activities, lab exercises, knowledge check questions, or even certifications. So we're leveraging these components at different points in our implementations in our customer journey today. But as we think about where we're headed in the future, you know, a big part of our vision is how do we incorporate and leverage all these systems that we have, these customer facing systems, to work in tandem. So as an example, you know, a user's on a community site and they can very easily access training content in a specific functional area. You know, we have a vision of prompting a user that might be searching for a specific topic, that we can offer them several perspectives. We can say, you know, here's what your peers are saying, right, in terms of community content. Here's some training content. Here's a recent blog post related to that. Here's some product collateral, knowledge base. You know, I think John and Jill, you both spoke earlier to AI and personalized learning paths. I think that absolutely is part of our vision. You know, we have a vision to leverage AI to recommend the right content or path based on what they're searching, what they're reading, what they're reviewing, what they're posting. You know, we have examples of situations, depending on the size of a customer, where one individual might play multiple roles. So I'll use an example of somebody who maybe in a smaller organization, they might be both a resource manager in an operational role, but they're also a system administrator. So how do we deliver a very tailored or personalized learning path for that individual that's not just kind of pushing at them like multiple training programs? We also have a vision to potentially take that a step further and thinking about like in-app type prompting, in-app behavior. So as someone's using, you know, our technologies, our applications, you know, based on different, you know, clicks and activities, having an opportunity to prompt them with material, content, information that might be relevant, whether it's through our learning portal or through some of these other mechanisms. So I think hopefully that gives some good perspective on, you know, how we're leveraging a learning portal today, but where we're also thinking about how do we broaden this and take it forward into the future.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to hear you're thinking about moving it in-app, because ultimately I think that's where most learning needs to happen. So let's assume that our customer is now fully implemented, they're fully onboarded, and the topic of portal shifts to technical support. Vitabi Informatica has won multiple TSI Star Awards over the years for customer self-service and community and knowledge management. Way back in 2017, I did a keynote in one of our conferences about building a converged customer portal, and I used Informatica examples all through the keynote because you guys were so far ahead of this concept. Could you talk about your philosophy of why customers need one single portal for everything related to support and community, and your journey to deliver that?
Absolutely, John. I think it ultimately boils down to experience. What is the best experience that you want to provide to your customer with the least amount of effort from their end? Okay, I think those are going to be some of the design principles. But I think let's take a practical approach here. I mean, even though every DX practitioner, the wish is to have one single portal, one single technology. I'm not sure if that is actually a practical approach to achieve that, right? But at least one thing that we can certainly say is the aspiration should be to provide a unified experience, and the reason I say whether it's practical or not is because your different portals and systems could be delivering different outcomes, coming out from different technologies from different vendors, so which is very common, right, in today's scenario. So the least that you can do is make sure that you're providing that unified experience across different portals. So key points when we went about this journey, this is what our thought process was, right? So now what can you do to make sure that customers can seamlessly transition between systems? So one of the key things is can we bring it on to a single sign-on, right? Instead of customers having to remember 10 different passwords, integrate them onto a single sign-on. And eventually this will also help you, I think Matt brought up a very good point about integrating this with your product at some point in time. If your product supports single sign-on, then how do you bring all the content in there into the product? So that is going to be key. At least that eliminates one point about the customer effort having to remember 10 different passwords. Then the second thing is how can we come up with a common information architecture, right? Because this is going to be very key in delivering this experience, because this will help you sort of provide some sort of a cross-pollination across systems, right? So where customers from one system to another, if they need to transition, they have a very easy way to do so through your information architecture. And as much as possible, try to keep the experience consistent. When I say experience consistent, your design or the UX consistent. It can come from different systems, that's perfectly fine, but it should look like everything is representing your brand. From it cannot look like 10 different systems from a customer standpoint. And I think it's also very important for you to sort of understand who your target audience are, right? Because identifying the persona and who'd be using your portal, right? I mean, are you catering it to like a very highly technical architectures, right? Architects for the product, or is it very focused on driving business value for some of the key decision makers within your organization? So you need to identify the personas for which you're building the portal. And what is going to be key for this is going to be the content strategy, right? So who within your organization is delivering content or creating content, and how do you make sure that there's a proper content governance to make sure that you have somebody looking at what is the most impactful content, what is the most impactful format of content that is being published, and how do you make sure that we are not duplicating efforts across the organization, but at the same time making sure that you're always providing with the right content to the right customer at the right time, in the right channel that they want to, right? And now once we talk about content, I know every technology today that comes has its own search interface, which can sort of provide a very siloed experience, or an inconsistent search experience. So a federated search capability which can go across all the content types across different systems is very important to make sure that customers are able to discover content. It does not matter. I could be on a learning platform, but I could be searching for something which might be related to some error messages. So your federated search should be able to bring that along with other learning materials. At the same time, if I'm on a support portal looking for some error messages, it should also sort of come back and tell me, hey, here are some of the trainings that are available which will help you to, how do you implement this going forward? What are the best practices to implement the product? And I think, there are so many things that you can do by just unifying the experience, right? And I think at the end of the day, this will also take you to the next step of, in the long run, if you need to integrate this whole help center within your product, or what we call as the in-product experience today, right? To make sure that we are delivering support to the customer, not just in the communities, but bringing the communities into the product where the customers are actually are. I hope that gives some sort of clarity into how we approach this and why it is important, John.
Yeah, thanks for that info. I know I did a workshop with some of your teammates, and you're kind of creating this cross-enterprise content development team to make sure that you're looking at content for the entire customer journey. But that's a topic for another tech summit. So it's impossible to do a tech summit without some mention of generative AI. It is just the hottest topic out there. Our inquiry volume on this is huge. And Patabi, I know one of the newest features on your customer portal is the generative AI-powered community answer bot. So I'm talking to so many members who are hoping to launch a Gen AI bot for self-service this year. But I think it's interesting that yours is focused on the community. Could you tell us about that project and some of the amazing early results you're seeing?
Absolutely, John. So, I mentioned my role is to deliver experience at scale, and also to make sure that, automate anything that is repetitive and optimize everybody's time, right? So with the advent of, I think, Gen AI, what we did is, we have formed a focus group within our post-sales function. And, we've been talking to all the business functions to sort of understand what are the areas that, they are spending a lot of time today where they shouldn't be, or, where we can optimize their time. It could be the process optimization or productivity improvement, right? So we are talking to each of these functions and stakeholders to sort of get that information. And, that's still an ongoing process, but, one of the things that we heard from a lot of our community moderators today is that how can we sort of use the power of Gen AI to sort of respond back to these community posts. So when we put together our entire use cases, John, based on our discussions, based on some of our own discovery, we categorize that under three phases, right? One is the quick win category. The second one, I'm just calling it, for lack of better words, I'll call it like a maturity model, right? A quick win is the first phase. The second one is differentiating use cases. And the third one is transformational use cases, right? And the concept of answer bot was in the quick wins. And the reason why it was a quick win and it was a low hanging fruit was because we are dealing with public information, rather than content which is already public, right? So today, all our knowledge base articles or discussion forums, everything is already available for non-gated users. So it's available through your public search engines. So it was sort of a low risk but a high impact use case that we picked up. And what we have done is, we have built a bot using the framework of generative AI. And whenever a new discussion comes into our forums, right? If the discussion is not responded back to in 2 hours time, the bot will go ahead and respond back, right? And provide an answer to that discussion. So now it's helping in two things, right? One is obviously creating that engagement, and also making sure that we provide ample time for either our customers or our internal folks to respond back. But if they are not able to, for whatever reason, your bot is taking it up and responding back. And again, we always start small just to sort of test the waters and see what is the response. How is it working? Obviously, it comes with a safe harbor statement saying that this is a bot generated. I think just to get a response from a bot and a very comprehensive response, I think that itself is like a kick for a lot of people, right? So we have what we have seen so far is we launched this probably a month ago, month or two to be specific. Uh, the bot today responds almost close to 10 to 15 questions per week, because the scope is still limited. It's just limited to one specific product and a very specific component within the product. So that's the reason why the number of responses are low. And we are ensuring that the confidence level of the bot is at least 80% and above before it can go and respond. We don't want anything less than that to go and put in some response which might cause unwanted escalations. So we are sort of doing a lot of pre-checks before what qualifies for a response and what can be. So by this, I think we are saving almost close to 2 to 3 hours of our community moderators time at this point of time per week. And I'm sure as we expand the scope to other products and other components and other areas, I'm sure we will start seeing much more improvement.
Yeah, thanks for that update. I'll look forward to seeing the results in another few months. Before we leave this topic, Jill, Matt, any thoughts on Gen AI, using it in your products, using it on your websites? What are you seeing?
Well, I think it's in the learning space. It's very quickly going to be used to generate content and really move projects along, because content can be very time consuming to create, and AI will be able to create it just like that. So really excited about how that's going to help our customers get the value quicker.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll just comment from my perspective. Most of our embracing of generative AI has been for more internal use cases thus far, but there's no doubt in my mind, like, this is transformational, and we're seeing even a big impact of some of the things that we're kind of playing with internally. And I think it is really critical as we think about our future for our portals and for some of these other aspects, as we talked about today. How are we going to incorporate that? I love the example, Patabi, you've used just even around the simple pilot of the AI chatbot. It's a great example of that.
Yeah, I have this vision that we go through the sales process and capture all this information about why customers are buying technology, their desired outcomes, their ROI. You would think that Gen AI could take all of that and help create an implementation plan that was specific to delivering the outcomes the customer wants, and then create an onboarding plan that takes all of that in. So, you can see how ultimately this could help automate that entire process. So, stay tuned. So Patabi, back to you and self-service. I'm showing some benchmark data for self-service. Average success is 50%, 36% average implicit deflection, 29% explicit deflection. Would you be willing to share some of the metrics you track for self-service, and how do you compare to these industry averages?
Absolutely, John. I think the way we look into it is more of a cause and effect, right? The effect or the outcome is the success of your self-service, but what are the key drivers or factors that influence that, right? So again, I go back to this. What does a customer do when they come on your portal? What are the different things that are available at their disposal, and how do they go about starting from logging into exploring all the different content and capabilities at the end, going and creating a case, right? So one thing is the traffic metrics, right? So it's very important for you to track how many page views, unique visitors, how many new registrations are happening on your portal. And more importantly, what are your repeat visitors? Why are they coming back? Are they finding, do they find the information that you provide on your portals useful? And where is the attrition happening? Where are your customers dropping off from your portal, right? And what's the percentage of logged in versus anonymous users? So I think this traffic metrics will give you some sense into the overall health of your portal. And then once they come into your portal, what are they doing, right? Let's say they first thing, at least in our data, it says that the first thing that the customer does is go and do a search, right? And now, is this how much of search is happening on your portal? That will be one metric. And what is your gap score, which means that how many people are not finding what they are looking for? So is there a content gap within your knowledge base or your portal that customers are not able to find? And what does the click rank look like? Are the customers finding all the information they need in the first 5 results in the first page, or do they have to go to multiple pages, right, to find the results? And what does the click-through rate look like? Yeah, I found I found the results now. I'm actually clicking on it, right? So is the topic or the subject, does it resonate with the actual issue or the content that the customer is looking for? And ultimately the helpfulness of the content, right? And now, moving away from search, you can talk about, okay, now people probably are not very fond of search. Probably they like engaging, right? So now, what are the collaboration platforms that are available, right? So how many new discussions are being created? Are people asking for the same questions over and over again? How many questions are actually answered versus not responded to at all? And how many of those questions are actually answered by your customers versus your internal stakeholders? I think this is very important, right? I mean, I can have a team of people internally sitting and responding back to each and every question, but that's not the whole point of having a customer community or a discussion floor. You want your peers, you want your customers to engage and solve the problems, right? For your users. And then, how soon are you responding back to those questions? And ultimately, if nothing is working, if a customer comes and creates a case, has that particular user completed self-service, okay, before opening a case? Or is the customer just coming and opening a case without even doing any of the self-service activities? What percentage of your cases come through the web, or based on different channels that you have? Because back in 2014, John, 60% of our cases used to come through the web. We had almost 35% of the cases that used to come through the phone, which was a very expensive channel for us.
For
Today,
sure.
Today, 95% of the cases comes through web.
Wow.
Email is almost non-existent. We don't have email as a channel, so we don't get any of those. We have 3% of the cases where customers still call in, and that's mostly during weekends and off business hours. And we have a chat as a channel for specific products. So you can see that 95% of the customers who open a case with support, they are already engaging with self-service. I think that's a very big number that you should, and also a very key number that you should track. So these are the different factors which will ultimately tell you how effective is your self-service. It's not just about the case deflection at the end when customers trying to close the case. We bring in all the necessary articles for them based on their problem description and error messages. That is just one piece of it. But I think you need to look at it as an holistic approach when you measure the success of your self-service. So I just wanted to sort of give you some insight into how we approach this rather than looking at just one specific aspect of it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Appreciate all of the information. I had a couple more questions planned, but in the interest of time, I want to go ahead and move to our wrap up and get in some questions from the audience. So we talked about customer self-service across implementation, onboarding, and support. And I want to go back to where we started, the results of this audience poll. I'd like to ask each of you how important it is to have this single customer portal, consistent UI design and experience. And Matt, let's start with you. How important do you think a consolidated customer portal is, and where is Kantata on this journey?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's very important, and we've talked about a number of the aspects and benefits associated with that here. In terms of where Kantata is on this journey today, it's funny up front. I think you had referenced, a TSIA member that perhaps had like a whole host of different product offerings and a host of separate self-service portals with different UIs. We're not quite that challenged at Kantata, but we did bring together two organizations, two different platforms, two technologies. So we're in the process of looking to unify and bring together into a single customer community all of those relevant customer aspects. So it's going to be, product and application is, certainly number one, but it's access to support, ticketing, a customer community, our knowledge base. And then we're also incorporating our LMS, as well as one of the things we haven't talked about here, but we have a customer advocacy platform that we're looking to incorporate into that as well. And I think that, ultimately, the value here is going to be providing customers with the ability to be able to get their questions answered in one place and to collaborate. Like I mentioned briefly, our customer community. The customer community is a really important aspect to us in terms of giving customers the ability to share content, connect with each other, pose questions. Having that being able to be an opportunity for customers to sort of self-generate that content and let the community build and develop on its own with some light moderation, I think is really important. And ultimately, this may sound a bit funny, but our goal or objective is to help provide an experience that customers sort of get lost in. And that may sound funny, but I'll use the example of, like, we get a notification of some content on Instagram, right? And you click into it, and the next thing you know, you step up and you spend 20 minutes on Instagram going through all this content and consuming all this content that was related and relevant. And while we don't want to be a time suck, we want to provide value in that way so that customers can really get immersed in the experience in that way. So yeah, I think just at a snapshot, I think we're on a journey. We're pulling together these multiple technologies, and I think I know AI is a big topic. I know it's relevant in a lot of these forums, but I think that's another key element here. That's something I think we could talk about in detail or at length, but I think that's another key element of how that's going to play a key role here. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Matt. Jill, as a Chief Customer Officer, you have a lot of clout to drive the end-to-end customer experience for Thought Industries. What are your thoughts on a consolidated customer portal? Is this a priority for your company? And is this something you work with your customers on as part of implementing LMS and LXP platforms?
Yeah, of course it's a priority. I mean, a consolidated customer portal is every CCO's dream, right? It's a priority for us in terms of we have all of our customer-facing information together and accessible from within our platform, though not necessarily on the same tech stack, but it all looks and feels the same. And we very much see our customer base heading this direction. And so for that very reason, we have in the past year developed another product, or part of our product, called Helium, which is a headless portion of our platform. So it's a framework where customers can develop their own entirely unique front end and make it look and feel like exactly what they want. If they want to go completely control it themselves, or they can just change a page or a widget or portions of it if they want things to act differently. And we also added in a feature called TI Connect, where we're able to connect all kinds of integrations together with the learning portal. So we can be that one-stop shop customer portal for customers, because it now has the flexibility, if you've got the resources and developers to be able to develop on the front end, you can basically add anything that you want to it.
Don.
Thank you, Jill. And Patabi, you get the last word. Since Informatica was about a decade ahead of the industry on creating a converged customer portal, what advice can you give to our audience? If they have a lot of disparate websites for customers, where do you start on converging these experiences? And any lessons learned you're willing to share?
Absolutely, John. I think I would always say start with data, right? Your web analytics. I always keep making fun, right? Love your data so much that it will share all the secrets with you and it will tell you a story of what's happening. So you absolutely need to know about the data so that you know what is being used, what is not being used. Then you also need to have a strategy, right? What are the key drivers for the convergence? What are you trying to achieve? Yes, customer experience is one part of it, but what else are you trying to achieve? And using the data that you get, I think it's very important for you to get a buy-in from all the cross-functional stakeholders, right? I think that is very key, and you need to do that very early in the game, because the first question is, what's in it for me, right? I think you need to answer that question. And then one of the things that we've also learned is, which could be effective, is having like a experienced governance team, right? Anytime any function or any team wants to create a siloed portal or a system, it has to go through a governance team, right? Asking why, what are you trying to achieve? What is it that the current systems or platforms or technology is not able to achieve? I think that is very important to make sure you have that. And I think as much as possible, try to unify your tech stack. I mean, I know it's not possible all the time, especially as your company grows. You always will run into those issues, but at least start with one tech stack, or try to unify it. Your single sign-on is going to be a game changer, right? Because that's going to provide you the unified experience, consistent experience, your information architecture. You really need to know what each of those different platforms are providing and how you can provide a seamless navigation between this from a look and feel standpoint, and of course, cross-pollinating it so that you can provide leads to other functions as well. And then I think finally, I would say define your KPIs. Is it going to tie back to renewals, customer satisfaction? Tie it back to the key business objectives that your company is driving towards. And I think if you get these things right, I'm sure that, you will sort of have your way in making sure, at least an easy way. I wouldn't say completely, but at least it will make your job easier in this whole journey.
Well, I would like to thank each of you for joining us, entertaining all of my questions. We've got a lot of questions from the audience. We've been able to touch on quite a few of them in our discussion, but Vanessa, in the few minutes we have left, do you want to ask a few audience questions?
Absolutely. And just as a reminder to everyone, even if we aren't able to answer your question here live, we will make sure to follow up with you. So please go ahead and continue to submit those questions. I'm going to start with a question that came in early on from Leslie. And they said, what type of documents are you sharing with your customers?
Yeah, so I'm happy to take that in reference to the project portal discussion. The documentation there's a variety of documentation that we're not just sharing, but sort of collaborating on through an implementation project. So early on, it can be documents associated with like discovery, like current processes, current state, some of those aspects and elements. But then it can get much more specific as we continue on, and we're capturing in the portal, as an example, if we've got a whole portion of the engagement that might be specific to like developing an integration or an interface or configuring an interface, like getting into like detailed requirements, use case specifications, and even associating that document directly with that task or that milestone, right? So it's easily accessible and easy to find. Another example would be when it comes to like executing like the UAT portion of an implementation, capturing the use cases and the progress on how we're evaluating and testing those use cases, right? So that anyone who at any point wants access can go to the portal, can review the use cases, and we can collaborate on those documents via the portal as well. So I think those are a few examples, but it really spans the spectrum. And the beauty of it is it can encompass sort of the magnitude, the breadth and depth of the documents that would be part of the project lifecycle, and it can really tie them in at the appropriate, tasks, milestones, et cetera, for that effective collaboration.
Okay. So our next question comes from John, and there were quite a few questions on the same topic. So John had the biggest, I think, encompassed the most in his question. So he said, I realize this is a very wide question, but any insight on build versus buy of portal platforms? Key players with portal technology categorized by industry, for example, enterprise versus self-providers. Any insight from you all?
Well, I will open with a couple of data points. I just completed a survey on technical debt, and I will be publishing a report on that soon. It's stuck in our editing queue. But the number one cause of technical debt is homegrown technology. And I just think that there is so much amazing technology available off the shelf with more and more embedded AI. And unless it is your company's core competency, you should not be building anything. I will also say that when I ask respondents to rate which areas of their website or which areas of their technology had the most technical debt, the customer self-service website was way at the top, and 52% of respondents said that they had a very high or severe technical debt in the customer self-service website. So I am not a proponent of building it yourself unless you are a portal company. But thoughts from all of you, because you make these decisions every day.
I mean, I agree with what you say, John. Absolutely. I think, anything that you start customizing and building, there is always an overhead of maintaining and managing it, right? So, yeah, when there are people who can do it the best and deliver the best experience, why go through the pain of managing and building it on your own?
Yeah, I'll say I'm aligned to that 100% as well. And I think as we look at it, the efforts that we put forth are really a lot of if we are leveraging different off-the-shelf options from different vendors for different components, our focus is really around the integration and things that are standards based and we can easily tie in. Consideration, Fabio, some of the points you had around single sign-on and otherwise, like those are some of the key considerations from our standpoint to make sure it's open, accessible, and we can tie it into a single experience.
We see many customers coming to us asking to replace homegrown systems with the new LMS after they try it themselves. So 100% agree.
Okay. I think we have time for one more question. And this one actually came in from Chelsea, and it's for you specifically, Joe. They said, tell me more about how customers are using headless technology with a learning management system as part of a solution to build a customer portal.
Yeah, we're finding that often customers already had a front-end interface that they want to use, but they need something in the back end to be able to power it. So if they have a design for, say, a customer portal, but they need to have the power of a training platform behind it, they can use headless technology to combine and integrate the two. So it really leaves a lot of options on how you can build those types of customer portals. Or if you want to, buy the whole thing already put together, that's another option, and you can take it right out of the box as it is and build it from there. So flexibility seems to be the key demand from our customers.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much. We have come to the conclusion of today's presentation. So now just a few reminders before we sign off for today. There will be an exit survey at the end, and if you could take a few minutes to provide your feedback on the content and your experience by filling out that brief survey. And please know that a link to the recorded version of today's summit will be sent out within the next 24 hours. And now I'd like to take this time to thank our speakers, John, Jill, Matt, and Patavi, for delivering an outstanding session. And thank you to everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for today's live summit, Building the Ultimate Customer Portal, brought to you by Technology and Services Industry Association and sponsored by Kantata and Thought Industries. We look forward to seeing you at our next CSIA event. Take care, everyone.